I'm Mike, thanks Jana for the intro, but people probably forgot that given the rambling on here. So, I'm Mike from Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources. This is a collaborative effort with Roger Clint and Russ McCullough from New York. Thank you. So, St. Lawrence River Warmwater Fisheries Assessment. Quick overview. I keep forgetting this is here. Quick overview. We're going to go through the netting locations just to orient everyone. The top 4 points is kind of what I'm discussing here. So Lake St. Lawrence was evaluated in 2015 as well as the Thousand Islands. Lake St. Lawrence is assessed by New York State. Thousand Islands is jointly between Ontario and New York. Lake St. Francis is on there. It's part of the St. Lawrence, but it was assessed in 2014. It was presented last year at LOC. It's in 2014 annual report, and I'm not covering it today subsequently. So, this is the map. What we account? Yeah, ooh, you guys can't see the laser either. All right. Imagine I'm pointing at the 48 and the odd years. That's Ontario's Thousand Islands netting location. The 48 is the number of net sets that we have. The one higher up, 36, the yellow arrow there, even years, that's Lake St. Francis. The odd years and even years, again, we sample them alternately. So odd years, like 2015, we're in the Thousand Islands. Even years, 2014, and this year we will be in Lake St. Francis. And there's 36 net sets for Lake St. Francis. The other two in the green are New York, so the one closer to Lake Ontario is the Thousand Islands assessment for New York State, and then Lake St. Lawrence is the one further up just below Lake St. Francis, 32 net sets. So, Lake St. Lawrence fish community, there were 20 species caught, 639 fish in total. Average catch per net is 19.9. Oh, gotta stay in front of the mic. And then the dominant species here, yellow perch, which will be consistent, you'll see through the other netting programs. So yellow perch, followed by rock bass and smallmouth bass. 8 of these species make up 90% of the catch. I'm moving into specifics on certain species. So yellow perch, the red line here is the target level that was in draft fish community objectives. These are currently under review. So this is the latest information I had. The draft was in 2003, so it's just kind of give you an idea of where we are. So in 2007, yellow perch abundance was increasing, and this was contributed to a shift in cormorant diets to round gobies. So it alleviated, as they shifted to round gobies, the pressure on yellow perch declined, predation pressure, and subsequently their abundance increased. Excuse me. And the CUE in 2015 is slightly higher. Again, I can't point, but you can see it, than the previous 2 years, 2014 and 2013. Other things to note, the target level is 4.8. We're at 8.8, so above the draft target level. That may change with the review. And the last thing is that growth has increased. With the invasion of round gobies, yellow perch growth increased and is somewhat stabilizing at this point, but again, through that time period of gobies proliferating and coming to the system, and yellow perch subsequently eating them, their growth increased. You'll notice as I go through that last part is kind of a continuing trend that I'll talk about. So smallmouth bass, there's no clear trend through time here. There was a period, kind of if you look after that high point there, it goes up and down, so it's variable. Through time, recent growth, again, after gobies invaded, they switched to incorporate more, well, I shouldn't say they switched, but they started to incorporate round gobies into their diets, so there was increasing growth with smallmouth bass as well. The targets, the red line, is 2 fish per net, and as you can see, we're at 2.25, which is around the long-term average. For walleye, unfortunately, it's down. We've seen high points in 2009 and 2010. Those are the highest in the time series, in 2009 being the highest, 2010 being the second highest. Since that point, CUE's been in decline. 2015 drops the CUE below the long-term average as well as below the draft target objective. All right, so Thousand Island gill netting, again, just to reference where we are. For Ontario in 2015, caught a total of 20 species. For the entire time series, there's just over 35 species captured. So in 2015, 20 were captured and a total of 1,069 fish. The dominant species, again, yellow perch, smallmouth bass, and rock bass. And 6 of these species represent over 90% of the catch. And then you look to the New York netting. In 2015, they had 37 species for the time series. 14 were captured in 2015. A total of 752 fish were caught. Remember, we have 12 more nets out than they do. And again, we have yellow perch being the dominant, followed by rock bass and alewife in this year, in 2015. And 6 of their species, 6 top species, represent 96% of their catch. So this graph, red is Ontario, blue is New York, is just the total fish caught per net, so the average CUE per net. And the Ontario nets, the abundance is really driven by yellow perch. And so what we saw, again, I can't point to it, but you can see the peak in 2011. And that has subsequently declined in 2013, and so you see the drop in the overall CUE. And now our catches, while the proportions are slightly different in terms of species present, the overall catches are comparable. And again, as I alluded to, yellow perch abundances. New York saw a strong 2010 year class. And growth rates, again, with the incorporation of round gobies into their diet increased, and this is subsequently stabilized. But pointing out the increase in yellow perch in the Ontario data set up to 2011, and then the subsequent significant decline in their abundance, which we saw on the previous slide, or reflected in the previous slide. With smallmouth bass, again, there wasn't a clear trend. We're observing a decline in the CUE, despite the fact that 2015 is slightly higher. We're noticing a decline in the CUE since 2005. Excuse me. And in the New York data set, they observed higher catches of smallmouth bass post-2005. Yep. And that historically, these catches have been made up of mostly age 5 and older smallmouth. And in that time period between 2005 to 2012, sorry, there's been a kind of a shift, and there's a larger representation of smaller, younger fish in the nets, or at least younger fish, sorry, in the nets. Subsequently, that's obviously declined, and the age distribution has shifted more towards what they've seen historically, with a larger proportion in 2015 being the older fish. The last species that I'm covering, again, there's more information. Our annual report is available through those doors there. It'll cover more species and give you the trends there. The last one I'm covering is northern pike. So catch rates remain low. I switched, I guess. There's now a black line. I should have said that before. So there's a black line that represents, it's very hard to see, I'm realizing now. But there is a black line in there. What you need to know is that's the draft proposal, or draft target level from 2003, and we are below that. It's the lowest CUE in both time series for northern pike. Their growth rate had declined since 2004, but right now it's relatively stable within the contemporary period. It's recently stable. But again, the main point here is it's in decline. It's been in decline for a while, and this has been attributed to habitat loss. So it started in the 90s, and we've seen decreases in recruitment associated with habitat loss. So, in summary, yellow perch are, from Lake St. Lawrence, yellow perch are above the draft target levels. CUE has been declining since 2012. Smallmouth bass are above the targets. The CUE has been relatively stable, while it fluctuates relatively stable through time. Walleye are below the target, as well as the long-term average. Excuse me, and have been in decline since 2009, which 2009 was the peak in the time series. For Thousand Islands, the CUE in both time series has been the lowest observed. That's all fish caught in the nets. Yellow perch are at or below, meaning one agency we're slightly above, the other is below, so on average, equally weighted, we're below the target. Smallmouth bass seaweed is declining overall, and we've seen a decline in younger fish in the nets recently, at least in 2015. And lastly, northern pike continued to decline, and it's the lowest CUE in both time series for Ontario and New York.